Again, you're welcome to my second leadership story or leadership story part 2. Now, in part 1, I shared my leadership story, and one, I believe that every person taking our courses must sit down and reflect and come out with what is called his leadership story. And you come out with it clear enough for you to be able to write it and share it. That becomes your leadership spotlight, as I will call it. Now, I shared in part 1 how that I was a leader, or I have been a leader, creating groups among rural farmers, the rural poor people, creating cooperative societies, planting churches, creating communities of interest, creating communities of practice, creating various community groups just to enhance community development, all round community development. Now, the intention was good enough that if we put these people together in groups, learning groups, practicing groups, self help groups, they will be able to live better. They will be able to have financial opportunity, access to finance easier, and they will be able to help themselves better. As clear as that course is in me, printed sharply in my mind, some things went wrong. I said, after about 30 years of entering various communities and doing this, I was now brought to a position of pressure where the responsibility of all these groups lay on my shoulder. I can hardly sleep, I can hardly be calm, I can hardly live 3 hours without one of them having to travel far somewhere to report something to me or to tell me something this happened or to invite me to come and solve this problem and then solve this problem. And then that pressure, finding myself in that pressure as a leader, is what gave birth to my change. Some pains are good, some pains are good. So I found myself in that pain, and that is what also gave me the concern that other leaders may find themselves in this and that I have something to share. After adding that experience to skills, I found out that I can coach other leaders and it will all work for a better society. So in this part 2, I shared how within my own time I was able to change, and then I was able to lead differently. I was able to investigate my leadership style, and I was able to come out with what is better, more productive, and then less stressful to me, that I can say I'm inspired to face my work. My work gives me inspiration. I'm not sad when I have to wake up every day to give birth to new communities or to interact with these old communities I have. I mean, it is an inspiration for me. And every human being should get to that point where work is an inspiration to you and not just as a paycheck. No. So I today want to say that having come out of my case within that timeline, some other people have not heard their story that way. Some, their leadership error have caused serious crash, that it is not only stress that it caused themselves, which in my case I came out of, it also caused serious breakdown, serious health challenges, serious financial collapse, serious community collapse because a leader made an error in his leadership style. So I have a story of one of such crises as a result of such an error. Now, this story tells of a great person that his community saw his potentials and his gifts and told him, be our pastor. Now, the story is not being said because it has religious connotation, but like I said, leadership is for everyone. Leadership is universal. Leadership is in every context: family, business, religious, non-profit, public sector, politics, and all around. But this story, this example, case study came from a leader in a religious sector. Now, having had so much potentials, he could sing, he could preach, he could vibrate, he could do all manner of things. So his community church was growing, 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 and he became like a king, so to say, in that community, in that church. The people loved him because he was gifted. And then he started flowing and riding in his kingdom to a point that you will think that if he's no more, then the community is no more. But then, as life will have it, every human being has potentials. It is when they are not given opportunity that you may not know. But there is no human being that is empty. Some are aware that they have reached potential, but some are not aware. But even if they are not aware of their potential, that does not mean they don't have. So a neighboring village had somebody who was invited to come and take some series, and he came and think about 6 weeks or thereabout. He was coming every week in that church, just from one village to another village, and then he did wonderfully well that people begin to see that, oh, so as gifted as this our king, our pastor is, there could be other people who could be gifted similarly. But then he finished his series and went. Then this other man, Dr. Bobo Jamo, who was a member of the community, was also asked to continue another series. Because when the other visitor finished his series, it was like, I wish you could continue. And that is how gifts are. When gifts shine, oh, you forget every other thing. So Dr. Bobo Jama, who was a member of that very community, now not an invited person, also now came up with a series that, wow, people felt, wow, what a gifted person. And then they were now wishing, if Dr. Boba Jama could do so wonderfully so well, then what stops him from sharing Sunday services with our great first pastor? And then at that point, the first pastor's ego got touched. It got pinched. He rather cancelled that option and assumed having to take 4 to 5 services by himself alone. He he silenced every other person, and then he became the owner of the kingdom. Let me call the word kingdom, the owner of the empire, the owner of the organization, the owner of the business, of the enterprise, as it were. And then his health started failing. His family began to suffer. His health started failing. That people first of all started like, so your health is failing. Relinquish power, share responsibility, share preachings, share singing, share whatever. Now, before you know it, it became like a political campaign. He had his people around him, and then he had people against him. And then the war started to keep his kingdom. I built this place, it's my place. I built this empire, it's my empire. I built this, it's my enterprise. And then it went to where his head failed. He collapsed. He died. And the church died because there was nobody to take over. His wife failed. It was a bleeding. He lost. The community lost. Future generations lost. And then all that would have been benefited, all that would have benefited from that also lost. So the losses were like a cycle because one leader didn't accept to investigate his leadership style. One leader didn't accept that something could be done about the way he was leading. And this is why I say some collapse as a result of what forms your leadership story and refusing to give opportunity to investigate it can be so heavy, heavier than my own. Mine, I suffered that stress, I overcame it. Maybe that was a divine favor for me. But I say some, it has resulted into great crisis, great loss, serious bleeding. And I wish to spare you that. And so I'm calling you, I'm inviting you for a coaching session with us. I'm inviting you for a reflection. I'm inviting you to a seat where you will look inward and x-ray your leadership story. And from there, we will find what to coach you upon. Thank you very much. I want to spare you. You have a leadership story, but let's look at that story and let's look at what we can protect. Let's look at what damage we can rescue from your leadership story. Thank you very much. Once again, I am Mr. Daniel of Darwana Servant Leadership Institute. It's a pleasure. I'm inviting you to Darwana Servant Leadership Institute to partake of our coaching session. So this part one and two stories, please listen to them. They form the basis to which we will begin our coaching one-on-one with you or one to a few or inviting us to come and coach your team. We are available. Thank you very much. It's a wonderful day. It's a new day for your leadership style. Thank you.